back again. We're on the last chapter of The Secret of Shadow Ranch. This last chapter 20 is called Daring Tactics. The voice was Al Diamond's. Nancy was trapped on the jutting rock far above the valley. "Stamp out that blaze," the man repeated sharply, "or I'll knock you off there." "All right." Nancy's brain was in a whirl. She delayed until Diamond bellowed again. Then she kicked the pile of smoldering wood from the rock. It burst into a shower of sparks and flame on the way down. Diamond snarled, "Come here." When Nancy made her way back to the cliff, he said gloatingly, "You think you're smart. As for those phony treasure hunters, we cut out of that trap as soon as I spotted the sheriff trailing us." Nancy's spirits sank as Al continued to storm. "You've made it too hot for us here, and you'll pay for it." He said the gang was on its way to the ghost town to pick up the bank loot when they stopped at the cabin. Shorty found fresh horse tracks and figured the girls had a line on the treasure. "He saw you gathering wood and gave us this coyote signal." Nancy's captor bragged that he and his partners had hurried to the top of the steps and watched from above. Seeing the girls emerge from Rigor's prison, the three men had sneaked down into one of the cliff-dwelling rooms to spy on them. "Finally, we saw you hurry by, and then your friends showed up, carrying something heavy. I said to myself, there goes the treasure." How nice to have Nancy Drew to do all the work for us. "You didn't harm Bess and George," Nancy said hotly. "Oh no," came the sarcastic reply. "My boys let him get out of Rigor's prison. Then they closed in." Nancy fumbled for her flashlight and switched it on. "Turn that off. I don't want anybody getting nosy. Hurry up, get going." Nancy hoped desperately that Dave had seen the signal fire. In order to give him time to make the treacherous ascent, Nancy hugged the wall and moved as slowly as possible. "Step on it," Diamond barked. Finally, he pushed her into the prison room. In one corner, she saw the red glow of a flashlight shaded by a cloth, and near it the dark figures of two men. But she could see nothing else in the room. "We're okay, Nancy," came George's voice. "They made us sit on the floor." "And smashed our flashlights," said Bess. Diamond spoke up shortly. "Shorty, where's that treasure?" "Can't see it, boss. You told me to keep the light covered." Diamond fumbled about before giving an explanation of disgust. "Rigor, are you hiding it?" "Let my father alone," Alice cried out. "He doesn't have anything." Instantly, Nancy's foot reached for the large chunk of stone she had seen near the door. Quickly, she shrugged her sweater from her shoulders and dropped it over the stone. "All right, Mr. Diamond, here it is." As she spoke, Nancy stooped and gathered the rock into her sweater. "I'll take it." "No, you won't!" With a mighty lunge, Nancy hurled the stone through the door and over the side of the cliff. Seconds later, it crashed on the rocks below. For a moment, there was a stunned silence. Then Diamond exploded. "You've played your last trick on me, Nancy Drew. Bryce, Shorty, tie him up." Nancy sat on the stone bench beside the door and waited coolly while Shorty lashed her ankles together. Diamond said, "Bryce, you and I'll go down into the valley and find the treasure. Shorty, guard these girls till you get my signal." At this, Nancy chuckled. "Poor Shorty. By the time you reach the valley, your pals and the treasure will be gone." The cowboy stopped his tying and turned to Diamond. "Let Bryce stay. I'm through sticking my neck out." "Yes," Nancy declared. "Suspicion was on you from the beginning. You wrecked the pump and cut the telephone wire." "All right," Shorty said resentfully. "And I put the generator out of whack and pulled the nettle trick." "Shut up," Diamond ordered. George spoke up. "They kept you busy, Shorty. After you imitated poor Chief, you found the clue in Nancy's watch and later stole the green liniment bottle." Out of the darkness came Bess's voice. "Who ransacked our room?" "Bryce," replied Shorty, "and that's about all he did." "Is that so?" Diamond sputtered angrily. "Without my brains, you'd both be nowhere." "What do you mean?" Bryce interrupted. "I cut the fences and knocked down the windmill." Now the men's voices shrilled in anger. as each claimed importance for his part in the conspiracy. Diamond's voice rose with fury. "Listen," he raged. "I got the idea for the Phantom Horse. I bought the silk and paint and trained the stallion to come to my whistle." "We helped you," Shorty retorted. He reminded Diamond that he and Bryce had put the trappings on the stallion for the Phantom performance. Ross Rigor cut in. "You almost caught them at it one night, Nancy. Scared them so badly they called off the Phantom. I heard Bryce say he had to slip from the spring house into the cellar through the secret opening." "Quit wasting time!" Diamond shrieked. "We've got to clear out of here." "Now take it easy, Diamond," Shorty said with a ring of authority. "It's me and Bryce again you. We'll go for the treasure. You stay here." Diamond fumed. "Okay, but don't try any funny business, and come right back." Without a word, the other two men went out the door, taking the light with them. The captives heard Diamond make his way along through the darkness to the back of the chamber, and heard the creak of a hinge. A soft laugh came from the gang leader. "In case you're wondering, I'm opening a wooden box where we keep dynamite and fuses." Gasps came from the prisoners. "You can't do that!" George cried out. "I'm forced to. Ross Rigor knows too much and I can't afford to let him go. Too bad, Nancy Drew, that you butted into my affairs." "I'll stay," Mr. Rigor cried out, "but don't harm these girls." "No, and as soon as I light the fuse, I'll lam it out of here." Crack! A match flared in Diamond's hand. "Wait!" Nancy exclaimed. "You'll blow up the treasure." The match hovered in midair. "What?" "That was just a big stone I threw over the cliff," Nancy admitted. She turned on her flashlight and swept it around the room, making certain the beam hit the entrance several times. Someone just might notice it. "Here, give me that." Diamond snatched the light. "Now where's the thing you girls carried?" "Here," Bess said. "We're sitting on it." Diamond pushed her and George aside and flipped open the chest. "Good night." He grabbed a handful of the gold hearts and let them run through his fingers. Then he closed the lid and began to carry the box toward the entrance. Just then, the rattle of rolling stones came from below. Flushed with success, Diamond called out, "Shorty! Bryce! I have the treasure! Fellows, we're rich!" Voices. Then a light flashed into the room. "Hold it, Diamond!" "Dave!" Nancy cried out. Diamond made a break for freedom, but George put out her foot and the criminal fell into the strong arms of Sheriff Curtis. Handcuffs clicked shut. The girls and Mr. Rigor gave shouts of joy at the sight of Dave, the sheriff, his deputy, and Mr. Raleigh. As the captives were untied, Ross Rigor told how cleverly Nancy had played for time. "She's the smartest little tenderfoot I ever saw." Then he related how the decoys and the sheriff's party had lost the gang and gone back to Shadow Ranch. When we saw the fire falling, I figured something like this had happened. Mr. Raleigh said we didn't want to give ourselves away, so we drove up the valley with our lights off. Dave added that Bryce and Shorty had been caught on the way down. "But where's the treasure?" "Here," George grinned. Half an hour later, the party reached the valley floor just as the moon rose. Dave put Valentine's fortune in the ranch wagon while Nancy gave Sheriff Curtis a brief report. It was agreed that he would recover the stolen bank money from the Ghost Town Hotel in the morning, and the cowboys were to bring in the girls' horses and the Phantom. The sullen prisoners were driven off in the sheriff's car. As Dave headed the ranch wagon down the valley, he said he thought Nancy should have a share of the treasure. "I know the gold must be turned over to the state," Dave added, "but the jewels and the banknotes should be worth a good sum. Nancy, since you found them, I feel a share rightfully belongs to you." The young detective smiled, then graciously but firmly declined to accept any part of the find. "It was fun," she said. The grateful cowboy grinned. "My brother and sister sure will be excited by the news." A little later they turned into the gate. The ranch, bathed in silvery moonlight, looked peaceful. Alice squeezed her father's hand. "Everything has turned out happily. Thanks to Nancy Drew," Mr. Rigor smiled. "What are you going to do now, Nancy, without a mystery to solve?" Bess teased. Her friend smiled. "Work on the sweater I'm knitting for Dad." She did not know then that she soon would become involved in the secret of Redgate Farm. But George knew that Nancy and Mystery were never far apart. She gave a sigh of mock sadness. "I hope your dad doesn't need that sweater very soon." And that is the end of The Secret of Shadow Ranch. Mystery solved. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.